In this video, we have to discuss about a prose titled Is There an Indian Way of Thinking? An Informal Essay by A.K. Ramanujan. A.K. Ramanujan was an Indian poet, playwright, linguist, folklorist, and translator. He worked as a professor of linguistics at the University of Chicago. Ramanujan was a polyglot and wrote in both English and Kannada. The predominant themes of his poetry include hybridity and transculturation. He was awarded the Sahitya Akademi Award posthumously in 1999 for his famous poem, collection of poems, The Collected Poems. In the essay, Is There an Indian Way of Thinking? Ramanujan elucidates cultural ideologies and their behavioral manifestations in terms of Indian perspective and psychology. He calls it as context sensitive thinking. This essay refers India's diversity and plurality of perspectives. The essay is divided into 6 parts. The first part of the essay delineates the Stanislavskian exercise which helps to understand a question from multiple perspectives. In the second part, A.K. Ramanujan talks about his father as a representative of India's diverse traditions and inconsistencies. In the third part, the author talks about India's inconsistency, hypocrisy, subjectivity, and tendency not to distinguish between inside and outside, and how India gives importance to particulars. This section throws light upon the contradictions of the Thinnai poetics, Agam and Puram. The fourth section of the essay describes the context free West and its modernity. Then it is juxtaposed, means അടുക്കി ചേർത്ത് വയ്ക്കുക, is juxtaposed with the context sensitive India. It is ചേർത്ത് വയ്ക്കുക. The fifth part of the essay substantiates the impossibility of context free being entirely free of context. Both approaches, context free and context sensitive, have remained in cultures. The last part of the essay portrays modernization as a move to be free of context and the multiple realities associated with it. The essay concludes by stating that it is never possible to be completely free of the context. Coming on to analysis of the essay, Part 1. Part 1 begins with the Stanislavskian exercise of asking a question in different ways. Is there an Indian way of thinking? Here we have to stress on is. Then another way, is there an Indian way of thinking? Here an should be stressed. Is there an Indian way of thinking? Here Indian, the word Indian should be stressed. Is there an Indian way of thinking? Here the word thinking should be stressed. We come to the answer of the question, of all the questions. First question, is there an Indian way of thinking? The answer is, he offers 2 perspectives in which he says there is no particular Indian way of thinking, and on the contrary, India never changes under the influence of the modern. Ramanujan glorifies tradition and states that it has happened a stage of permanency. Coming on to second question, there is an Indian way of thinking. Is there an Indian way of thinking? The answer is, he says there is no any particular Indian way of thinking. He addresses the diversity of the country and the multiplicity of traditions, but there is a unity in India. Ramanujan states that Indian thinking is characterized by contradiction, hypocrisy, inconsistency, and context sensitivity. He uses a series of quotations with reference to epigraph about Walter Benjamin's dream of hiding behind failings of quotations. The third question, is there an Indian way of thinking? The answer is no. Specifically, categorized Indian way of thinking. India had been in hands of Aryans, Mughals, and British, and in the end, with some British people remain in India, they become Anglo-Indians. Henceforth, he says that there is nothing uniquely Indian. Rather, everything that enters India becomes Indian. So here is a beautiful sentence. Everything that enters India becomes Indian. The fourth question, is there an Indian way of thinking? Ramanujan talks about the Western or Orientalist claims that there is no positive stream of science or scientific temper in India. The Orientalists believe that India owns no philosophy and only religion, and its views are rooted in its consciousness. They opine that in India, viewpoints are subordinated by spirituality and rational thoughts are attached to feeling and intuition. Ramanujan highlights that India is synonymous with cultural magnanimity and it is a land of cultural inclusion and accommodation. Part 2. The second part of the essay is a dedication to the author's father, A.K. Srinivasa Iyengar, who was a mathematician, astronomer, and astrologer. Ramanujan says that his father's life was full of contradictions. Ramanujan asserts that such contradictions are the very nature of the Indian way of thinking, along with the latter being both inclusive and exclusive. Ramanujan quotes from his poem Astronomer, which brings together science, religion, mythology, and everyday life in a single spectrum of thought and lines. This exemplifies the multiplicity of perspectives adopted by Indian thinking. Then part 3, third part talks about India and tries to seek answer to the question, what is India? He gave references to the inconsistencies in India. Englishmen believe that Indians have a trait of hypocrisy, but Max Muller talks about the truthful character of Hindus in his lectures. Ramanujan says that even the basic concepts have diverse meanings in India and these meanings are fluid and plural. Edward Said addresses European stereotypes regarding Third World in his book Orientalism. Henry Kissinger believes that India looks inward whereas Westerns look outward. Indians understand the outside reality as a continuum of one's self, whereas Westerners consider it as a part of their identity. Robert Simmer is of the opinion that Indians do not have a differentiation or binary opposition of self and non self, interior and exterior. They do not have a pseudo objectivity. V.S. Naipaul states that Indians are very different from Westerners in their worldview. According to him, Indians are self absorbed, less objective, more instinctive and emotional. Self absorbed, less objective, more instinctive and emotional. It makes them ill adaptive to the modern world. According to Ramanujan, Indians do not have one truth but many truths. Indians do not mean what they say or say different things at different times. Ramanujan comments on inconsistency of thinking with the reference of basic concept of karma. This inconsistency is not the result of a lack of education or logical rigor. Henry Kissinger concludes that Indians are at an earlier stage of cultural evolution and have no understanding of objectivity. On the other hand, Robert Simmer praises Indians for this lack of objectivity. This section also refers the Indian tendency of not differentiating between the interior and the exterior. It can be illustrated based on Thinai poetics in Sangam literature, in which there is Agam and Puram, means interior and exterior. Agam is about the interior, which includes heart, mind, earth, love, poetry, etc. Puram, on the other hand, talks about the exterior, such as body, surface, ocean, workings, etc. The lack of differentiation between interior and exterior is termed as a defeat of vision by V.S. Naipaul. Another trait that Ramanujan points out, along with inconsistency and hypocrisy, is the lack of universalism with reference to Manusmriti. Universalization is the golden rule of the New Testament of all Judeo-Christian ethics, but not of Manusmriti. According to Manusmriti, punishment should be based on caste system. Manu asks who did, what did, to whom did, and when did. Indians do not have a synoptic system like Hegel's or Kant's, and anything goes into their bricolage. ബ്രിക്കോളേജ് BRICOLAGE എന്ന് വെച്ചാൽ കൈവശമുള്ള ഫ്രഞ്ച് വേർഡാണ് ബ്രിക്കോളേജ്. The essay also talks about ethical laws of India. It talks about ashrama dharma, swadharma, abardharma, sadharana dharma. Ashrama dharma, swadharma, abardharma, and sadharana dharma. Ashrama dharma means the conduct that is right for one's stage of life. The conduct that is right for one's stage of life. Swadharma means the conduct that is right for one's station or jati. Abardharma, the conduct that is necessary in times of distress or emergency. Sadharana dharma, the common conduct. The essay also talks about the differences between traditional religion and rational religion. Traditional religion focuses on the particular, whereas rational religion focuses on universal. Indians believe in particularism. Then part 4 and part 5. It talks about the two kinds of grammatical rules, context free and context sensitive. All Indian languages are context sensitive and the West is context free. Ramanujan says that a text gets its meaning in relation to the reader and it cannot be understood in isolation. Ramanujan proves this idea with the help of a poem in which a concubine, CONCUBINE, natural web party, concubine talks about a man who when she hears that the man's wife talked disparaging things about the former. That is, context is very necessary to understand meaning. He explains cultural tendencies in terms of context free and context sensitive thinking, quoting Manu and Bauthanya. He illustrates how Indian culture adopts a context sensitive approach to law enforcement and even its interpretation of dharma. Bauthanya has shown how the practices of Brahmins are different in the north and south, also about the difference in concepts of Shruti and Smriti. According to Ramanujan, Indian literature up to the 19th century was context sensitive. Even historically dateless texts like the Ramayana or Mahabharata make their context clear through meta stories and frame stories. Ramanujan also mentions the concept of dramatic pentad by Kenneth Burke, which talks about a relationship between scene and agent. The essay also talks about the Levistosian opposition between nature and culture. The concept of space and time universalized in all over the world, particularized in India. He also describes an old belief about soil. Soil affects the character of the people who work on it. Soil even changed the mood and character of the dwellers, natural nivasigal. He also describes about the concept of time. According to him, Time is not neutral and universal. There are auspicious times and inauspicious times. Their effects vary depending on their time phase of life and people. Certain units of time, like the Kali Yuga, breed certain kinds of maladies. When he refers to music, then he refers to music. According to him, ragas are context sensitive. Certain ragas are appropriate for certain times of the day and certain seasons of the year. Even indigenous medical practices are context sensitive. Then he compares Panini and Euclid. In traditional cultures, there were context sensitivity rules and bonds. Today, the objective is to be free of context. He refers rasa, moksha, sannyasa, bhava, vibhava, etc. According to him, the Western culture is context free rather than context sensitive. Protestant Christianity, post Renaissance science and technology all favor a quest for universal laws. But there are counter movements also. He refers William Black to glorify this concept. Ramanujan cites the examples of context-free concepts like moksha, rasa, bhakti, etc. He emphasizes the concept of bhakti, which was context bound, now politicized. Part 6. He refers modernization in India. According to him, modernization is a movement from context sensitive to context free in all realms. Print media, constitution, caste, and gender display a movement away from the particular to a more egalitarian and universal ethos. Egalitarian is samatwadi. Cultural borrowings from India and by the West have changed the highly contextualized Hindu systems into a Hindu way of life for all. He refers Eliot's use of Vedic da in the wasteland. India borrows concepts from the West and realigned to fit into India's context sensitive needs. He humorously refers the concept of Ayudha Puja conducted for computers in India. He concludes the essay by narrating a parable told by Buddha, which points out certain situations in India in which Indians are context free and at the same time indicates how difficult it is to be entirely context free, especially in a complex culture like India. The essay, in conclusion, the essay is there an Indian way of thinking, an informal essay, authored by Attipate Krishnaswamy Ramanujan. Attipate Krishnaswamy Ramanujan enquires in 6 parts whether a particular Indian style of thinking exists. The author discovers that there is nothing uniquely Indian in the way of thinking. He compares the Indian and Western ways of thinking and explores the Orientalist views of the latter upon the former. The writer explains the shortcomings of Indian views, including Thinai poetic approach of Agam and Puram. He blames India's lack of universal approach which the West follows. Considering grammar as context free and context sensitive is discussed, in which the traditional context sensitivity bonds of India have been seen as restricting the country from liberating its thoughts and actions. He advocates an exchange of Indian and Western thoughts and ideas for the smooth run of the world. In conclusion, again, there are 6 parts. First part of the essay delineates the Stanislavskian exercise, which helps to understand a question from multiple perspectives. In the second part, A.K. Ramanujan talks about his father as a representative of India's diverse traditions and inconsistencies. In the third part, the author talks about India's inconsistency, hypocrisy, subjectivity, and tendency not to distinguish between inside and outside, and how India gives importance to particulars. This section throws light upon the contradictions of the Thinai poetics Agam and Puram. The fourth section of the essay describes the context-free West and its modernity. Then it is juxtaposed with the context-sensitive India. The fifth part of the essay substantiates the impossibility of context-free being entirely free of context. Both approaches, context free and context sensitive, have remained in cultures. The last part of the essay portrays modernization as a move to the free of context and the multiple realities associated with it. The essay concludes by stating what it is never possible to be completely free of the context.